how the general lottery goes when you have to sign up for it, but I do know the commercial lottery, it's always around the 1st of January is when we do that.
Thanks.
All right, we're gonna have a few people joining this late because I still see people still joining in. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everyone. I gave this a really bold title tonight, 5 post-processing tricks every nature photographer should know. Of course, it's not the only 5, and it's not the 5 most important, but I'm not very good on titles, so that's the best title I could think of to kind of entice people to come listen to what I have to say. But I'll give you an idea of where I came up with these ones that we're going to talk about tonight. Is when I do the workshops that I do, and I show people these little tricks, it seems to me these 5 things I'm going to show you tonight, most people have never heard of them before. Now, that's not to say, I mean, we've got some new faces in the audience tonight. Thank you guys for coming. That's not to say that some of you guys haven't seen these before, don't even understand them. So I may bore you with some, I may enlighten you with others, and hopefully it'll be more enlightenment than boredom tonight. And as usual, when I do these, if you're new to the format, I mean, I can sit and do a monologue the whole time, and I'll do that, but I like it to be a dialogue. So if you have any questions, you can reach over there and unmute your mic and ask me the question as we go along, or you can type into the chat and I'll see the chat. So a lot of times it's hard for me. I've got to manage a bunch of screens. So tonight, as I go through this, I've got the keynote presentation that you should see on the screen right now, and I'll be telling you about these different, what I call tricks. I mean, these different techniques. And then I'll be switching over to Lightroom to show you exactly how I do it. So really the whole thing, like the email said, these whole things are designed to be, you don't have to be an expert at Lightroom. You don't have to be an expert at Photoshop. These are really pretty easy things to do, but a lot of it's just thinking about it ahead of time and understanding that you've got these tools at your disposal that are really powerful tools and will help you in your quest to become a better nature photography. Now, again, I still got people joining. That's what's distracting me. Again, I'll tell you this. Some of the things I'll show you tonight too. If you've ever been on a workshop with me or ever heard me speak at an event, you'll hear me say this a lot of times. The cool thing about photography, like we say in Texas, out in the country in Texas, is there's a million ways to skin a cat. And so some of these things I'm going to show you to do, there's the other ways of doing it, but what I'm going to show you tonight is just my way. I'm not saying it's the best way or it's the right way, or I'm not saying the way that anyone else does it is the wrong way. I'm just showing you the way I do it, and that's how I become comfortable with. And so, but I'm not stuck on what I do. And so if you've got a better way of doing it later on, I'll share my contact info with you, and I would love to hear how I could do it differently, because I don't have a real big ego with photography. I've had a pretty successful career, but at the same time, I realize I'm not solving world hunger by pressing a button on a machine. So I try to just have fun with it, share my love of photography and nature with other people. So I hope you'll take everything we're going to talk about tonight in the spirit of that. So without further ado, let's talk about 5 post-processing tricks every nature photographer should know. And again, my name is Russell Graves. I'm coming to you live right now from Hackberry Farm in Dodge City, Texas. A lot of people don't know where Dodge City is. I don't live in town. I live out in the country and out north of town, but Dodge City is a little town of about 350 people. It's where my son goes to school. It's where I graduated high school from. In fact, this farm I'm sitting on is a mile away from where I grew up. I moved away for a while, and 3 years ago, moved away for a while and made my living in the Texas Panhandle. And 3 years ago, my wife and I decided to buy this farm that had been in my family for the better part of 40 years. And we built a house right here. And so that's where I'm coming to you live from tonight. And I always like to talk about that because, I'm back home, and it's just a beautiful part of Texas to be in and a beautiful place to be, but it's going to get cold. And before you say, wait a second, that's Texas, how can it get cold? Well, we're going to have lows of 4 degrees and highs in the teens come Friday, I think. So it's going to get pretty cold here.
It's the hell out of here.
Yeah, so I know it's going to get cold other places, but I always like it when it gets cold here because it'll just get cold for a little while, then it warms back up again. But let's go ahead and get started on this thing. Here we go. Let me get everything situated. There we go. I always like to start off with a couple of pretty pictures. So all these pictures I talked about, we're going to show tonight. I've used these techniques as part of, and I'll kind of explain those more as we go along. And so the first thing I want to talk to you about is use color profiles. And this is something I did a workshop in the Florida Everglades last week, and I was showing everybody that how to use color profiles. And if you look at in Adobe Lightroom, if you look at where you do all your adjustments on your pictures, you'll see this little profile and it has Adobe color right there. And so let me switch over my screen to a different screen. Oops. Here we go. Can everybody see Lightroom now? I'm going to take that as yes, since no one said no on it. If you look at profile, I've got a few pictures already picked out. I'm going to do this on. So usually my workflow is pretty simple. And this is one of those things that's subtle. It's not going to change the world and how you do things, but it's subtle on the effect it has. I got to move my screen around a little bit because let me make this a little bit smaller. All my Zoom screens are in the way. I can't really see everything, and I can't move this one screen. So if I go to my develop menu here on this landscape picture I took in Alaska last summer, use my typical workflow, and this is kind of cheap. I'll hit auto first because for a lot of pictures I do, and likely a lot of pictures you do, auto does a pretty good job at least of getting you in the ballpark. And so you'll see there where it moves all the sliders around. And if I want to go in here and adjust the blacks to my liking a little bit or give a little bit of clarity, I can. But on the profile, if you'll notice there, I took the profile out. It's really, really subtle, but on landscape pictures especially, I love using this Adobe landscape profile that's built into Lightroom, because what happens is when you hit that landscape, it's a really subtle change, but it kind of makes the colors a little more rich, and it gives a little more pop to the images that I take anyway, than I can edit. No matter how I edit, if I add that Adobe landscape to my landscape pictures, it adds just the right amount of pop. Again, it's subtle. I don't know how well this translates when in Zoom land when you guys are looking at it, but if you notice there, that's how Lightroom thinks it ought to look like when I hit the auto button. And then when I hit Adobe landscape, just pay attention here, you'll see just a little bit of pop of all the colors. And I love the way that looks. And that's something really, really simple that you can do to especially make your landscape images pop. All right, let me switch back.
So it didn't come across on Zoom very well, but I use that. It does make a big difference.
It does make a big difference. I'm glad you said that. It's and I think you'll agree. It's subtle and it's so quick to do, but once you kind of finish your processing, hit that landscape, and it's pretty amazing just the difference it gives your images. All right. Now, a lot of people do this, and this is another little quick shortcut I'm showing you, and I've kind of put these in order of what I think are the most noteworthy. So the profile is the first. They're all noteworthy in a way, but the first one is probably the least impressive in my mind, I think anyway. And so these are going in ascending order. So the second one, keywording, is really important. The last webinar I did a webinar on how to manage your image library. I've got about 750,000 pictures in my image library. And so when I first started taking digital pictures, I knew what the problem was going to be. And this is probably in 2004, 2005, when I first switched to digital. I knew the problem was going to be not taking the pictures and not adopting the technology, but knowing, that since I take pictures for a living, I love taking pictures, even when I'm not doing it for a living, how to keep up with everything over time and how to manage those images. So last month when I did a webinar about how I manage my images to be able to find one of 750,000 images just in a few seconds, one of the things I talked about was keywording. So if you've seen this piece before, this will look familiar to you, but one of the things that I discovered that really saves me a lot of times, if I can, I'm going to switch my screen back again over to Lightroom, is I think I picked this one. So the old fashioned way you can do it is you can go over here in the keyword panel and type them in one at a time, separated by comma. I could do ground, comma, squirrel, comma. But one of the things I would get hung up on when I was keywording that would really slow me down was after a while, I would have to stop and think, what are the keywords can I give to that image? Because I'm trying to think in two ways on keywording. One, I'm trying to think, how am I going to think about this image in a year from now when I'm trying to find it? Number two, how is someone else going to look for it when they're trying to find it on my website? I just noticed someone turned on closed caption, which is not a big deal, but I'd love to see how closed captioning interprets my Texas accent, because Siri can barely understand what I say most of the time. So good luck on the closed captioning. I hope it works. But anyway, one of the things I discovered is a little plugin. If I go over here to File and I go into my plugin extras, I found this plugin that the guy just asked for a donation. It's free to use, but I donate about once every 6 months. I'll give the guy money because it's been such a good tool for me. But it's called My Keyworder for Lightroom. And you can just do a search for that online. You can download it. And so far, this is the best keywording plugin I've found. And you can see there popping up, asking me for another donation. But can y'all still see that? I hope you can see the keywording panel. But what that does when I open that is if I type in ground squirrel, and I'm not sure how this works, I'm just guessing. But if I search keywords, if you look in this unselected keyword panel that should pop up in a second, it'll search their database and find me all the possible keywords that may apply to that image. So then all I've got to do is go through here and click animal, mammal, wildlife, squirrel, brown, rodent, small, ground is in ground squirrels, one word, fur, fauna, all the things that I think are appropriate to that image. I can go through here and pick those keywords and then select my right arrow to select those keywords out of the list. And then I can click Save Keywords to Photo. Now, if you notice over here in the panel, if you can see the panel underneath the zoom stuff, you can see it applied those keywords to that image. Now, the beautiful thing is you can do it for one image, or you can do a batch image. You could have 1,000 images and apply the same keyword to 1,000 and be able to go back and modify individual images as you see fit. Because a lot of times I may have 100 pictures of white-tailed deer, but half a dozen of them are making a scrape. And so I can apply global keywords to all of those and go back and modify individual pictures to help make my search a lot deeper. But this one, My Keyworder for Lightroom, just being able to keyword and being able to keyword images so quickly and being able to not have to think about what keywords I should use. All I've got to do is figure out what the animal is. And from there, I can use My Keyworder to leverage their database and really be able to keyword my images really fast. So that's tip number 2. If you're into keywording, which I think everyone should be, I think you do yourself a favor if you get into the habit of cataloging your images and being able to find them quickly. You do yourself a big favor on that. Now, I see I've got a couple of questions in chat. I'm going to get to those in just a minute. Let's go to the next one. I showed you the demonstration. Number 3, and I'm kind of moving through these a little bit fast. I was hoping to get done in about a half an hour, and that way, if we have a lot of questions, I can go back and show you some other things. Because as we get through these things, like this one, becomes a little heavy-handed, and it's got a few steps to it. Not too many steps. It's got a few steps to it, but I want to make sure that you understand how to do that step. So I'm giving plenty of time that we can go back and look at some stuff. Number 3 is color graduated neutral density filters to fix the sky. Now, back in the old days of film, we could, I had all these different color filters, and you can still buy those same color filters. But the cool thing about Lightroom, it allows you to do it in post-processing. And I'm going to show you an example. Back to Lightroom. So like, okay, I'm going to show you this picture here. So this is of a glacier last summer in Alaska. So I can do my typical things when I go to develop. I can I can hit auto and it'll kind of do my fixes. But here's where it gets, it's getting in familiar territory for some, a little bit less familiar territory with others in my experience. But I can, you can see that mask I've already created. I pre-did a bunch of this stuff, but there's the mask I already created. So everything in pink right now is stuff that's going to be shaded. So think about a graduated neutral density filter like the windshield of your car. If you look at the top, it's got like the shaded area. And then as it gets lower on your windshield, it becomes more and more clear. And that's how a graduated neutral density filter works. And the purpose of it back when I first started using them during the film days was if you've got an uninteresting sky, like a cloudy sky, you could help balance that image, because a lot of times the sky is a lot brighter than the foreground. And so you choose either expose for the sky or choose to expose for the foreground. Something's not going to be right. Well, with Lightroom and being able to add these in, I'll still use a graduated neutral density filter every now and then on my lens, but more often than not, I'll put it in post-processing. And so let me delete that one real fast. I'm going to go back and show you from the jump on how I do it. So from here, I'll go in and I'll select a linear gradient, and then you can see that cross that showed up, and that's pretty much, it's telling you where you're going to start this filter. And so all I'm going to do is drag it, and you can see it's darker at the top than it is at the bottom. So I'm going to drag it to about the top of that glacier. This is all subjective anyway. It's kind of whatever you like. And then a lot of people know to do this. Then I can lower the exposure on the sky, and it kind of gives me a gradual, it's darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. But now here's the part that I find that when I teach people this, a lot of people don't think about this or have never heard of it. But this is one of those good tools to put in your toolbox when you're doing landscape photography to think about later. So down here this is my adjustment panel for my linear gradient. Down here, you see this thing called color, and it's X'd out. And if I click on that, if you notice, I've got some preset colors at the top. These are the typical colors I use for landscape photography. And I'm going to pick something really bold so you can see it. But if I click the blue right there, you can see it gives a blue tint to the clouds. Or if I click any color, you can see it changes the tint in the clouds. Now, typically what I'll do is try not to overdo it where it's really noticeable. That would be the example of like a tobacco graduated neutral density filter back in the day. But usually what I'll do is something a little bit subtle that looks kind of natural, and maybe something like that, or maybe even a complementary color. But the cool thing is about that is you can, let me go back to color. The cool thing about this is really you can pick any color to your heart's content within this color picker. And, I'm just picking some crazy looking colors so you can see it change. But as you see, I've got these pre-selected for what I think looks best. And so I would probably pick something like a little bit of a blue. It gives a little bit of complementary color to the, or a matching color to the, what I'm seeing in the glacier, or pick kind of, a softer shade of that kind of that tobacco color. And if you look down here on the strength of that, it'll also let you adjust the strength of that color once you apply it. So I'm going to take that back to the middle. Does that make sense? So that was technique number 3. And again, just to go back from the mask picker here, all you simply do is, well, I'm going to go back and delete this one again. All you simply do is go back, and from here, linear gradient, lay it in there, adjust your exposure, and then add whatever color you think looks best. And really that's it. And for pictures you're taking on a day with overcast skies where the sky is just uninteresting, in my opinion, it's a lifesaver to be able to do that. And it's less gear I have to carry with me. I'll show you another example here real fast. Let me go to this picture here. This is a picture I shot for a magazine story about sinkholes in Texas. This sinkhole right here appeared in this cotton field back in the 90s, and it was probably about 10 years ago when I did this story. I knew about where it was, but I've got a friend who owns a helicopter. We went out flying around and we spotted it in the morning, And so as typical of that part of Texas, the wind blows a lot. And so you've got a real dusty sky, even though this was technically a pretty nice day, we still didn't have a real good sky. So again, typical of what I do on these pictures is hit auto, add the color profile in, and then I'm just going to add a little mask to the top to give a little color to it. A little goes a long way on all this stuff. So every time I make these changes, I may be exaggerating them for you a little bit tonight, just so you can see. But typically what I'll do is just go make some gradual changes and kind of give it a little bit of an interesting look. You know what? I think I like a little bit of purple in there. I think that looks pretty good right there. So that's number 3. Does anybody have any questions so far about anything at all? I'm having Sharon, give me a thumbs up if you can still hear me. Okay, we're good. Make sure everybody can still hear me. It's kind of hard sometimes. I can only hear myself talking. I can't hear anybody else. So I'm always having to check to see if anybody's listening. So again, number 3, that's a pretty simple thing to do. And you can, as I go back on these pictures, now that I've showed you what I do, you can see I added a little bit of blue on this. This is on these bare pictures leading into the mud towards Tuxedney Bay. You can see I add a little bit of blue to that. Added a little bit of a little hint of like maybe a light blue to this picture of this dotted gay feather meadow out in Missouri. And then even on this picture of this is Soda Butte Creek in Yellowstone National Park, and just a little bit of blue to make it pop there. Those weren't using filters. Those weren't using filters on the lens. Those were all done in post-processing. And then number 4, this is another one that I think is really, really valuable, because one thing we are taught in our self-taught photo school is, when you've got an overcast day, it kind of limits you, especially when you're shooting wildlife in certain circumstances. But one of the things I want to talk to you about is, it's easy on a clear day when the sun's going down to make a silhouette, but it gets a little tougher on overcast days to make a silhouette. Well, I'm going to show you how I do it. And so the one thing that these pictures have in common is they're all taken on overcast days, and a couple of them weren't even taken early in the day, or were taken more towards the middle of the morning. So in my demonstration on this, what I want to show you, and this is a pretty neat technique as well. So you can see here, let me get everything moved around again. You can see here that this picture, let me take it back to the beginning.
Yeah, can't see it yet, Russell.
What, you can't see it yet?
No, we just see demonstration.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to switch it over. How about now? Should be able to see it now.
Yep.
Okay, so in this demonstration, this is how I took the picture. This is a bull elk, Yellowstone National Park, overcast day. And one of the things I did on purpose was I underexposed it, because I wanted it was either do really high key where the sky is blown out, or try to underexpose the bull and get no detail in it. So you can see there. And so really all I did, I'm going to just go back through my through a couple of steps. So all I did was bring the shadows down a little bit. You can see here. And then I brought the blacks down a little bit to try to make that bull elk and the grass around it more and more black. Now, here's the one thing that I learned a couple of years ago that I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm probably slow to learn this, but all of a sudden, to make a really good silhouette, to make this look like blue hour or sunset with a bright sky, is I can change the white balance. And that's a pretty simple way to make a silhouette when you've got a sky that's uninteresting otherwise. And you can, like I said earlier, there's a million ways to skin a cat. You can go in and select sky and change it. That's a global fix I can do there. I have done it a couple of times with just selecting the sky and changing it there. But just the simple change in the white balance does wonders for making that thing look like a really slick silhouette. Now, I mean, that picture right there, I've done a lot of magazine covers in my life, and I could imagine a picture like that being on the cover of a magazine. And you see how it started out. I mean, by all intents and purposes, the bull was in the perfect spot for a really cool picture, but the sky didn't cooperate that day. And so that was the choice I had to make. Now, I shot some pictures that where the bull was properly exposed, but the sky is really, really blown out, and I could have fixed that later. And those pictures look okay, but to me, when I shot it this way, and again, you know, that's the cool thing about photography, it's all subjective, is to me, it just is a lot more intriguing when I made it into a silhouette. And the cool thing about it is, I mean, you can go crazy on this white balance, you can go to either extreme, but somewhere right in there, I probably think looks the most natural to me. And I think that's a pretty slick tip right there to use. And again, all these things are just tools that I keep in my tool bag that I think about all the time when I'm out in the field. And if, you know, if the opportunity presents itself, I know instantly, well, I can't get the kind of picture I want, because we'd all love a blue sky, you know, sun at your back, barely above the horizon with that nice golden light on this animal. We'd all love that. But if you, as everyone knows, in nature photography, the weather never cooperates like you really, really want it to. So sometimes you take what you can get. And for me, this was the best opportunity to be able to do that. So again, I'll go back through those steps again. That's why I imported it. You can see all the sliders are right in the middle. All I did there was underexposed it when I took it, just a little bit, not a lot. And then I brought the blacks and the shadows, and then I changed the white balance, and that's it. And that's a great, easy way to make a silhouette when that's really maybe one of the few chances you have, or one of the few chances you have to do that. So all these pictures were shot against just cloudy, otherwise dreary skies. These snow geese, bighorn sheep, and that's the same elk as you saw in the picture. I just showed you how to do it, but that's again, use the same technique on all these. Just works out pretty good. It's I can't state it enough. It makes a usable image and makes something out of nothing almost. And then number 5, and bear with me when I explain this, because this is probably the one that has the most steps I've got to go through, but I think you'll like the results when you see this. And if you'll bear with me on what my justification is. Whenever I take birds in flight, one of the things that I coach people on is after the bird has left the scene, or you're done taking pictures of that one bird, take a picture of the blank sky where it just flew through. And the reason why, if you mess up on composition, so it's easy enough to take that bird. Now that's not that sky was next to that one. I thought that the one with the clouds was more interesting, but it was taken at approximately the exact same time as this picture was taken. It's so simple to take that bird, a picture that's kind of busy with the cormorants on the mangrove and it's a poorly composed picture. It's, you know, I'd love to say that every bird in flight picture I get is perfectly composed, but I'd be lying to you. I try to get most of them perfectly composed because I'd rather be out taking pictures as opposed to just working on them in post-processing, because I'm not very good at post-processing anyway. I know these little tricks, but as far as heavy duty work, that's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm just not that good at it. But the tools that we have at our disposal make it easy to take that picture, and then take a sky that it just flew through and be able to combine them and make a good picture out of it. And if you've never seen this before, or the way I do it, again, a lot of different ways to do what I'm about to show you, but I'm a pretty simple thinker and pretty simple in how I approach things. And so let me just show you the way I do it. And I preloaded these things to show you. So I've got a picture here of a puffin. And that's a really nice picture because it's sharp and the wing position is good. The color's good. The lighting's good. Everything on it works except for one thing in my mind, and it's got terrible composition. And because if you've ever photographed puffins before, they're super fast. And so what I coach people on is whenever you're taking pictures of birds, always take a picture of a blank sky that's in the approximate same area where that bird just flew through in the same light. And then you can combine them later. So what I've already got them preloaded in in Photoshop already. But what I like to do is I'm going to select these two pictures, and there's a shortcut, but on Mac, I'm going to control click, or it's right click in PC, and then you can edit in Adobe Photoshop is what I'm going to do next. And the reason why I do it from here is because when you make all your changes, it'll save the image back to your Lightroom catalog without you having to save it somewhere and then go re-import it again. I'll show you how that works. I've already got these preloaded, but this is what's amazes me. So if you notice, I've got two tabs. There's two pictures open right now. So in the one of the puffin, the one I'm so proud of, except for the composition, I'm going to go over here and use this magic erase tool. Now I don't. Oh, sorry about that. Thanks for reminding me. How about that?
That's
So,
better.
okay, now I'm in Photoshop, and I've got this picture here. That's my blank sky that I opened from Lightroom. Here's my bird that I've got that I'm so proud of. Now, this technique works better if it's a dark bird. If you've got a light bird against a cloud or something, it doesn't work as good. You have to go in and work on it a little bit more. But with this dark bird against the blue sky, I'm going to select this magic eraser tool. And by the way, let me just remind everybody, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good I think I am at Photoshop. I may be about a 2. I'm not very good at Photoshop at all. I'm a lot stronger at Lightroom and what all the tools are there. But as far as the minutia that Photoshop requires a lot of times, I'm just not that good at it. So my point is, if I can figure it out, I know y'all can too. So I'm going to use this magic eraser tool, and I'm just going to click right around the bird. And I'm going to have to click 2 or 3 times because it just kind of peels the layers of color away. And so essentially what I did is I erased the background from the bird. And then I'm going to select this rectangular marquee tool. There's, again, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. And then once I draw a box around it, I'm going to use the universal keystroke for copy, which is in Mac, it's Command C. I think it's Control C in PC. And I'm going to copy that bird. And then I'm going to go to my blue sky and I'm going to paste it over there. And so now the bird's roughly in the same place, but if I click my little cross tool up here in the corner, I can click, oops, don't like seeing that. Let it think about it for a second. I can use my cross tool, and now I can move that bird to a better composition, which is probably somewhere right in there. And as I'm looking at it, and I've got my glasses on, I wear reading glasses, as I'm looking at it, knowing I just did it, it's a seamless transition of what I was able to do. So, and another thing you can do with these high resolution cameras with that is the shortcut to transform is Control T in PC or Command T in Mac. And so I'm going to select that and it gives me the bounding boxes. Let's say the bird's a little small in the image. I can make it even a little bit bigger if I wanted to, and then move it around where I want to, and then click the and then when I'm done, all I've got to do is close it out. It'll ask me if I want to save it, and I'm going to tell it yes, I'll save it. And it'll ask me if I want to save that one. I'm going to save both of them because it'll save your mask too. Now, while it's saving everything, I'll go back in here to Lightroom. Let me switch over. So you can see now it saved those images back into Lightroom for me. I didn't have to lift a finger to get them back in there. But you can see the difference. I took the picture on the left-hand side that was poorly composed, and then I was able to take it and put it in a new sky on the right-hand side, enlarge the bird a little bit to make it a little more prominent in the photo, and then make a better composition out of it. Now, you may be saying, Russell, why don't you take a picture of the blank sky? Why don't you use sky replacement? And here's the number one reason I can think of. I don't know about y'all, but a lot of times I can look when a sky's been replaced and know it's been replaced because the lighting and the angle of the lighting on the bird as opposed to the sky doesn't match. So I advocate when you're taking pictures of a bird, like I said in the beginning, as soon as that bird passed, take a picture of the blank sky that it just flew through. So that way you've got the picture in your arsenal. If you need to go back and do what I just did, you're going to have a sky that matches the bird the lighting on the sky matches the bird. And it's, to me, it's not cheating. You're just redoing the picture. It's not cheating because you're not placing something that wasn't there when the bird wasn't there. That's the same sky the bird flew through. I mean, literally, I shot 10 pictures of this puffin, and then as soon as it flew out of frame, I shot a picture of the sky. It just flew through. And then when I looked at the pictures later, I realized, oh, I've got a really sharp picture on the left of the bird. It's just poorly composed because I've got the same sky. I can make a seamless picture and be able to add that to the, I'm able to add that bird back to the sky, and again, in a seamless kind of way. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. It's a little harder to do if it's a white bird against a blue sky or against white clouds. You can still do it, but you've got to go through and kind of just use that magic lasso tool to kind of pick around the bird a little more, but it's still possible to do and not a really heavy-handed technique. So of those 5 things that took me about 40 minutes to go through, is there any questions about any of them? Or do you want me to go back and do any of them before? But before you ask any questions, I'll just recap what we talked about already. Use color profiles. I've had at least one person say that it's a pretty good thing to do. It's really simple, adds a little pop to your color. Keywording, can't stress enough. If you care about keeping track of your images, and and you do keywording, look up that keyworder for Lightroom plugin, because it has saved me untold amount of time just by going through doing the process of keywording my images. And then the graduated neutral density filters to fix the sky. Again, it's a technique I like using. I just think that it just gives the sky a little more punch when you add a little bit of color to it. And then to make a silhouette, I think is an indispensable way of making something out of nothing when Mother Nature is not cooperating. And then we just did the pictures in flight. This picture's been published before, and you could probably zoom way in and tell that I copied from one to the other, because again, I did it about as quick as what I just showed you just now. I didn't put a lot of thought into checking in between the wing feathers, but you can see just taken within seconds of each other. And these have been color corrected a little bit, how you're able to blend it all. And because of that sky was taken at the same time the bird was taken, wasn't in the exact same frame, but it was the same sky from the same angle that I took this picture from. You can see there the light on the, dang it. Pressing too many buttons too quick. The light on the bird matches the light on the clouds. And to me, that's where, if you use sky replacement in Photoshop, that's where it really falls short, is the light on the bird and the angle of the light on the bird, or whatever you're taking a picture of. When you use sky replacement, they don't always kind of line up to make it as believable looking as what it should be. But by using this technique, sky replacement, but you're using the sky at the time you took the picture. So after that recap, I need to be patient with my slides. Does anybody have any questions at all? Feel free to turn on your mic or turn on your cameras and fire away. I'd love to hear if you have any questions so far.
About keywording.
Say again.
A question about keywording.
Okay, go ahead.
So when you put your keywords into your file in Lightroom and you save it into photo, I think that's the command. So do those keywords stay with that file no matter, like if you switch over to Photoshop, those keywords will still be there?
Yeah, they get appended into the metadata of that image.
Okay.
So it's portable no matter if you use Bridge and did a search for keywords of your images, it would still find them. What I do on my pictures is the ones that that are going to go live on my website that my clients can search through and find. Yeah, I add those keywords in Lightroom, and when I export from a raw file to a JPEG, those keywords seamlessly and automatically stay with that export when I export it. So when I import all of those images, or when I upload them onto my website, those keywords are in place And then the whole database system that works with my website picks up those keywords automatically. So once I do the heavy lifting at first by adding keywords, I never have to think about those keywords again.
Okay, yeah, I think you just said the key, exporting.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. So whenever you export, they're going to live with it. So if you've got a smug mug site or something like that, once you put the pictures in once you put the keywords in Lightroom and export it and then upload them into smug mug, those keywords will stay with it every step of the way. And so I use those keywords. That's one of the techniques I use to be able to find images really quick, because I can do cross-platform and be able to find them in a bunch of different ways without having to just go through Lightroom.
So Russell, this is
Yes.
Roberta.
What's that?
Did you say that that keyworder product is a plugin to Lightroom?
It is. It's a plugin.
Okay.
Yeah. And hang on, let me share the screen with you. You should be able to see Safari now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my, if you do a search for my keyword for Lightroom.
Okay,
got-
got it, found it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's mykeywordr.com is what it is. And
Does
then
it support hierarchical keywords?
I don't think it does hierarchical keywords. But again, the thing is you can download it for free. It's kind of on the honor system. And so that's what I do is I just donate the guy. Every time it pops up and says, hey, would you like to make a donation? I'll donate $10 or whatever, just to kind of keep it going. Cause it's saved me a lot more than that over time.
Russell, will
Russell?
you go over the last steps in the last demonstration for the moving the bird in the sky, the part you do in Photoshop?
Oh, yep, I will. Hang on. So let me share the screen. Let's go back to Lightroom here. So that's the original image. And then this is I'm going to have to start from the beginning because I close those out. Here's the original image. There's my sky picture. I'm going to edit in Adobe Photoshop. It's going to open them over there. So let me switch over to that. Okay. So now I'm in Photoshop, and you can see that I've got two tabs up there. There's my sky. There's my bird. So I don't know what step you want to start from, but I'll start from here. I use the magic eraser tool, and then it gives you that tool with the little pluses around it. And I'm just going to click 2 or 3 times around the bird because I don't know why it works this way or how it works, but it's like it peels away different layers of that same color. So that's why I click 3 or 4 times just to make sure I get rid of all the color around the bird. And then I click the marquee tool, the rectangular marquee tool, and just draw around the bird a square. And then I can copy what's inside that square using Command or Control C, Command C on Mac. That's what I use. And then Command V to paste it into my sky. And then I use this move tool that's at the top. And then I can click on that bird and then move it around where I want to. And then one thing I showed you, if you want to make it bigger, you can do Command or Control T, which is transform, and then you can grab it by the corner and it will scale it. You know, I can make it smaller if I want to, or I can make it bigger if I want to. Because again, using these high megapixel cameras, I'm looking at it right now, and I think for everything I would use it, it's fine. And then once you have it, then there's your final picture. And then when you close it out, it's going to ask you if you want to save it. And if you tell it yes, it'll put it back into your Lightroom catalog for you without you having to save it somewhere else. I heard someone else try to jump in with a question or a comment.
Well,
So-
yeah, Russell, this is Glenn. I just use the move tool to drag it up to the other point. You just grab a hold of it, put it up, and it goes right into it. And there, like so. And then you
Okay.
just move it, and then you can just move it around as you wish.
Yeah. So like I said, just a million different ways to skin a cat. Again, my way is not the best way. It's just my way of doing it, how I learned it and how I taught myself. So That's a good point, Glenn. Thank you.
If it's a real intricate movement, you can use the arrows on the bottom of your computer, and it moves it just a tiny little bit back and forth if you need to do that too. So,
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I don't know if you can see
yeah,
that moving. I'm just using the
yeah,
arrows to
yeah.
move it to the
See,
right.
that's real sensitive, and you can put it exactly sometimes. My question to you, Russell, is well, okay, you're out in the field. Now the light changes on your background constantly, whether it be sky, uh, grass, prairie, or whatever. Uh, and when do you know that you need to take that extra picture? Because an hour later, it's not going to quite look the same.
It's usually, so really the way this works best is if you're shooting birds against the blue sky or against a cloudy sky.
Yeah.
Usually, again, when this puffin came in and it flew past me for the 2 or 3 seconds it flew past me, as soon as I got through with that puffin, I took a picture of the sky.
Okay.
And so when I look at the whole sequence in my Lightroom, when I've got all the images in thumbnail view, you'll see a 10 or 12 pictures of this puffin, then a blue sky picture at the end. Because I went
Right.
back and took a picture. That way, the light's not going to change 6 seconds from when I first took the picture. So
No.
that way it'll all match together.
So
Now-
you take a glance at through your scope or review your picture and you're thinking, gosh, I wish I could have gotten that differently. So I want to take a picture of the side. So you're kind of looking at your pictures that you've already taken.
I've got now where I just know I'm going to have 1 or 2 that may be in focus, but they won't be composed very well, especially when a bird's flying left to right. So I've just gotten in the habit is once I've finished taking pictures of the bird, I'll go back to where I started, take a picture of the sky, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So
That's a good idea.
especially when the action's pretty heavy. Now, when you're talking about originally, you talked about when the background's changing, that gets a little more difficult, and I have been successful in this some, but this technique I'm showing you works best when you're just shooting pictures of birds against a fairly clear sky. All right.
Great idea.
Oh, I've got some chats coming in. So, just some people. I think I've answered some of these. People put some chats in. Yeah, Roberta, my keyworder is a plugin. Yeah. Okay. So all the chats that I've got are all questions people just ask. So yeah, if you've got a question, it's probably best just to turn your mic on there and just ask away. So any other questions from anybody?
If I may just interject one thing, you use that temperature gauge, which is a great idea. I never thought about using that to change your silhouette of the to a different color. I've always used it in churches because the color in the church is never very good. If you
Yeah.
take a picture, and I use a little guidance there, and sometimes even the auto works pretty well on that. But the temperature is always wrong on the picture, and it always looks cruddy, yellowish.
Yeah. I usually keep my camera on auto white balance all the time. Not usually, I keep my camera on auto white balance all the time just because I'm too forgetful. I'll forget to change it back. And the good thing about shooting in RAW is you can always go back and change the white balance. But like you say, auto white balance does a pretty good job of fixing that. But I like to be able to control it. Even if you're shooting landscape pictures on overcast days, you can just change the white balance. Just again, a little goes a long way, but you can adjust it just a little bit and be able to make a real big difference on how those pictures look. Now, of all the things I adjust on the hierarchical scheme, exposure probably gets adjusted the most that I use because the cameras are really, really good, but they're not infallible when it comes to different scenes in the that you'll see in nature. And so a lot of times I'll need to adjust the exposure. If it's within the realm I can fix. And then after that, white balance is probably, if there's 10 things I adjust on every picture, white balance is probably number 9 on most all of them. But I do use it more often than not on what I just showed you on how to make it into a silhouette, because I think that's a pretty slick use of the white balance tool in a way that I don't think it was designed to be used. Well, I don't think I have any other questions. If you have more questions, let me know. But if you think of something after this is over, by the way, when we're recording this, and I will put it on the YouTube channel in a couple days, send everybody that signed up for the webinar for a link. Cause I think we had 150 people sign up for this webinar. Not 150 people showed up, but that's pretty typical. A lot of people sign up just to get the recording when it's over with. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to stay in touch. There's a couple of my websites. I'm not trying to sell you anything when you go there. You just might want to go see a little bit more of what I do if you're new to the webinars. And then send me an email if you get a chance, russell@russellgraves.com. Sometimes I'm a day or two late in answering emails because there's no telling where I'll be at any given time. But you can ask Glenn. I always answer emails whenever one gets sent. So I always try to stay on top of that. So send me an email and feel free to stay in touch anytime that you feel led and have any further questions, especially after you've had a chance to digest this tonight. If you can't remember something I talked about or have a question or two, just feel free to let me know. I'm always glad to help. And with that, I want to say thanks to everyone for showing up tonight. I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, and thank you for spending your time with me. There's Don and Edie just showed up.
Oh, yeah, somewhere. I just want to say hello.
Hey guys, how are y'all
Thanks.
doing? Good
Great.
to see y'all.
Thanks for the seminar. Stay warm up there.
Edie keeps disappearing.
Yeah.
She's sitting too far behind you.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
good
on
to
the
see,
short chair.
it's good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you,
Like I
Russell.
said, I recognize a lot of names in the crowd tonight. A lot of names I don't recognize, but I just thank everyone for joining us tonight because it is photography has been a blessing to me and my family, and any chance I get a chance to talk about it, I always look forward to it because if you're new, I've said this to people have heard me say this before, but you're looking at the entire photography enthusiast community of Dodge City, Texas. And anytime I get a chance to talk photography with good people, I always like taking advantage of that. But it's good seeing you guys. And again, Merry
Hey,
Christmas.
Russell?
Hey, yes.
Russell, I'd like to just tell everybody, if they've never taken a trip with you, that they have got to take a trip with you. You are fantastic. You make everybody feel comfortable, and you're hilarious as hell.
Oh, I appreciate that. That makes me feel good to hear you say that. It's like I said, it's all supposed to be fun. None of us are solving world problems by taking pictures with the camera. We're just all out there to do the same thing, have a good time, have fun, and enjoy each other's company. And I certainly do that every time I get a chance to be around some of you guys. It's always fun. Never get tired of it. Well, with that said, thanks everybody, and pay attention to the next newsletter. Usually comes out around the first of the month, and I'll tell you what the next seminar or webinar topic is going to be. So stay in touch, take care, have a Merry Christmas, everybody be safe, and hope Santa Claus brings everyone something good. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for the tips.